Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second interview of Tournament Strategy here at OC University. Those of you who are new, OC University is basically this improvement-focused OSU hub where our goal is to sort of bridge that gap between top players and the general community. So in keeping with that theme, something we do here is a series of interviews where we dedicate 1 week to a specific topic. We have a bunch of guest players lined up to do individual interviews. And joining me today for the second interview of the week is William Stetson. Hello. Hey, Will.
Hello, hello. What's up?
Hello. Yes, happy to have you here. I think probably a very unique perspective when it comes to tournaments as a whole. But I think a lot of people might actually be surprised as to why you're here in the first place. I think a lot of people don't actually know that you play tournaments actively. But just in case anyone is not familiar with you at all, could you just give a brief introduction as to who you are in the community and what people probably know you as?
Yeah, sure. Well, it's quite apparent what most of you probably know me as. I am, in fact, the funny Haramachi Man singer. Yes, I did take place in creating that abomination of a map, but you know, what people mostly like don't know me as is a active tournament player, at least in the four-digit scene. I also play open rank tournaments, and usually I captain most of the teams that I play in the rank restricted division, but not as much in the open rank division.
Right, so you definitely have a lot of experience because you know exactly what I mean when I say like scheduling hell, like playing
Yes,
so many tournaments at once that you can't even schedule all your matches. So I think you're
yeah.
very familiar with that also. So we can talk a lot about that, but yeah, specifically, I think your perspective is going to be unique in the sense of comparing rank restricted tournaments, which statistically speaking is what the majority of players play in, and then also open rank tournaments as well. So sort of giving that perspective in that sense. But I want to first start sort of more basic and ask you how you got into tournaments and when you got into tournaments as well.
Yeah. So I think the first tournament I played was about 3 years ago now. It's like almost to the day, if I remember correctly.
Oh
Or
wow.
no, it's actually a little earlier than that. I started playing in it was 2018, probably like August or September when I was about 2K or something like that. So actually higher ranked than I currently am now. But I really had no introduction at all to tournaments at that point. And then one of my friends named Blue Orb, Blue Orb,
Oh
who
yes.
asked me out of nowhere. I think this was at the time where I was actually streaming pretty actively on Twitch, just because this was like at a point where lots of people knew me because of like stuff like Despacito and Super Driver. So I was like, well, streaming on Twitch might be fun, since I'm like not actually like that bad at the game. And then Blue Orb was who started out as one of my viewers, and then eventually we just like started talking. Asked me to play F2 tournament, which was a rank restricted tournament. I think I played with him and Conrad Mitten and like Santeri or someone like that.
Oh.
And then Santeri dropped out, so I had to actually like take on kind of an active part of the team as opposed to being benched for like every map. Uh,
Oh, so you had a three-man
since
team.
what's up?
3-man team?
Yeah, pretty much because I think Santeri had some like IRL problems, so he couldn't really play Osu.
And
Um,
I think just for context, this was a 2v2 tournament, right?
Yes, it was a 2v2 tournament.
Okay.
And initially, for the first couple weeks, I admittedly did not take it very seriously at all. I think I no showed like one of the two matches, and then like forgot that the other one was happening. So I showed up like without having looked at the pool, like having I was like, "Yo, my bad." Just
Let's
sort
go.
of showed up. I don't think I played any maps. But the reason that I eventually actually got super into tournaments was because in that same tournament, we had lost a match for whatever reason, and it was just me and Conrad Mitten at our final match, where none of us we were both very underprepared. Neither of us had really looked at the pool, and we were just like, you know what, we're probably gonna get dumpstered because this was against like a pretty prominent. This was like we were against like Mook and Kanyo back when they were like at their prime
Oh my god, wow, yeah.
in the rank restricted tournament, and we took them to tiebreaker, like just on like sheer luck, essentially. And so, and at that point, I had never known like true excitement with an O2. I
Oh my
don't think
god.
until that point. And we did lose tiebreaker, sadly, but at that point, I was like, all right, well, this seems really fun. I'm gonna try and get into this more.
Let's go. Wait,
Uh,
I have a vague memory of you like messaging me. and you're like, dude, now I see why you people play tournaments so actively. Like,
Yeah, yeah. It was right after that match, I'm
right.
pretty sure.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, and then I think I don't think I actually played another tournament until like maybe I think you asked me to play
That's right.
TED tournament
Yeah,
after
yeah,
you
yeah,
invited
yeah.
me to UFRJD after I met you at TwitchCon, I think
Oh, right.
was how it went. And then you asked me to play with you guys for TED tournament.
Oh my
And I think
God.
that was my second tournament.
That's crazy. Yeah, I remember that.
Hmm.
Second tournament. Oh my God.
Or something like that. I don't remember
Yeah.
if it was my I think maybe I played another one in between there, but I just can't remember.
Right. Dang, that's crazy though. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I did not even realize that was so so early on in your tournament
Yeah.
playing. But yeah, so since then I think you've actually been really, really active. Also not only as a player, but as a commentator as well. Right?
Yeah, that's I never really thought about commentating until I think someone asked me to do USC. Oh wait, I completely forgot. I played USC in the first iteration in like 2017 before
Oh,
that. But
wow.
I was really bad, like astoundingly bad. So I just like I didn't play anything until and I guess I wait, no, I played stateless too. Shit, I forgot about that.
Oh
Oh
my
my
God.
goodness.
Going way back.
Yeah, I just completely forgot. I think I did that too. But I never really thought about it, like, because it wasn't like a super
Right.
engaging experience. I was just like sort of showing up because someone asked me to play.
I see. But yeah, so commentary, I guess how you got into that.
Yeah, I think I had signed up to do United States Cup in 2019, if I remember correctly. And then since people started recognizing me more as like a popular voice with an OSU, I just applied to random tournaments. I don't remember like exactly what got me super into commentating, but I did apply for OWC commentary in 2018, and I remember I did not get accepted because I just didn't have enough not enough experience at that point.
Right.
So I tried to be a bit more active in stuff like Hippo Cup and USC, which did eventually allow me to start commentating in 2019 for OWC.
Let's go. Wait, are you commentating this year also?
Yes, I am.
Let's go. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Woo. So, yeah, I'd be interested to ask about your strategy, I guess like how you analyze other team strategies as well from a commentator's perspective versus how you strategize in your own matches. But yeah, okay, actually I'm okay because it's actually kind of hard to get a good starting point with this topic. So I think I might just ask you like, what do you think is the most important thing when strategizing for a tournament? And it can be anything. It could be like how you prepare for the match or like your pick strategy or like what do you think?
Um, well, pick strategy is definitely important. Like I think analyzing the other team's strengths and weaknesses is obviously an important thing. I don't really. I used to take a lot more time when it came to that because oh gosh, I just completely lost my train of
Oh,
thought.
eh, you used
Yeah.
to take a long time strategizing for picks like in the past.
Yeah, I also used to really over practice pools, which I later discovered was like just not a good strategy at all. I think
Oh,
that's like one of the most common mistakes that a new tournament player may make is like trying to SS every map in the pool before the match.
okay, can you talk about that actually? So like, I guess how did you come to realize that over practicing was bad? And then like, what would you consider over practicing in the first place? Like, how do you know if you've practiced the pool too much? And how can you stop yourself?
Well, I think once you start mind blocking in pretty much any capacity, you've kind of screwed yourself in terms of tournaments. In terms of like that map, like there's no because if you can't do it in solo, like there's a very slim chance that you're gonna be able to do it in a tournament. So if you can run through a map once and then have like an okay score, then I think that that's what you should probably put down on your team sheet as opposed to like trying to get an FC say on like a no mod one. If you're getting like shit misses everywhere and then you get a 990 KFC, you should not put a 990 KFC in the sheet if you have like three runs with misses.
Right,
Like in my opinion, over practicing is like uh just it's first of all like if you find yourself not able to focus on the map, then you've like you've over practiced.
right. And I think that's basically how you can define mind block. Also, it's like
Yeah,
you're not focused anymore.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it's like
Uh,
I know this map. I know how this map goes. don't need to focus. And then
Yeah, that's why I also, if there's I mean, with the new wave of like custom tournament pools, it doesn't really work anymore, but for any tournaments that like reuse certain maps, like I know Sakura Mirage is just like the no mod 2 consistency
oh,
pick for
true,
lots of like for like rank restricted and even like open rank like group stage picks.
that's true.
Stuff like that. It's like if that shows up in a tournament, I'm just not going to play it because I don't even want to remember how the map goes,
Right,
because like Psy rebuff is a real thing if you have the skill to play the map at all.
right. I think like as long as you know that there's nothing there to trip you up, then just read it in the match. Like I think you get all of your like good runs in practice when you are actually focused on reading the map because you don't know how it goes. But then if you've learned it to the point where you're not really reading it anymore, then by the time you get in the match, you're just gonna like sort of fall apart. And nerves don't really help either in that sense. So
No, not at all. Nerves, yeah, nerves are also another thing that you need to take into consideration. Like if you get nervous during sight reading, then maybe don't do that. Like it
right,
all depends per player. I don't know if there's any like advice that I can get, because I know that like I don't think there's any global advice that you can give to someone, because I know someone
right.
like, yeah, do you know Leftovers?
Yes.
He, for a tournament that we won called Rikma, in grand finals, there was a map called Timer by Cola Kid,
Yeah.
DT map. He had 25 plays on that map, uh,
Oh
just
gosh.
so he could know that he could FC it, and he FC'd it in match.
Oh nice.
He didn't. Yeah, he's like, there are certain players who can just like, they can play a map like 30 times and not mind block and somehow get better every single time. So
Right.
like it does take some experimentation. I think most players can't do that, but if you can, that's probably to your benefit.
Yeah, and I think it depends on the type of map too. Like,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, if it's a map that's very rhythm oriented rather than aim, and it's like doing well is just about knowing how the map goes, then just reminding yourself of how the map goes over and over again is actually really, really helpful. So,
It's very helpful, but I think it can also hurt you very hard in terms of nerves. If you know a hard pattern's coming up and you're like, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, there's a hard pattern. I need to hit it." And then then like I feel like you're doomed. Like
right,
there's such a big chance you're not going to do it. And then your mental will fall apart as well, and you will just like suffer through the rest of the map.
that's true. And sometimes the rest of the match entirely momentum.
Yeah. No, I've definitely been prone to tilt in
Oh
tournament
no.
matches, and that is another way that I know that I've overpracticed for a pool, actually, is that once I begin to tilt after missing on one pattern, I know like I knew this too well. Like this is
Oh,
not something that should have happened.
I see. I think usually how I consider like, or like, okay, actually, how would you describe as, okay, what would you describe as like the goal of practicing for a tournament map, if that makes sense? Like, what's the goal of practicing the map pool?
Um well, I don't really, well, the goal is to just be able to perform in a match, but like cuz it doesn't really matter how you do in practice if you know that there's a way that you can make your score better in a match. So like like practice is a very broad term. Uh, like there's different ways to practice every map. For something like an ARA pick, like most people know me as like the AR8 slave in tournaments. I like never play ARA maps anymore. I look at them in the editor so that I know like if there's any stupid patterns that I'll need to remember when I'm in the
Right,
match. But I'd never play them because AR8 is also like one of the most notoriously like mind blockable skill sets, and like
right,
even I, like I'm definitely not immune to that, even though I'm good at the mod.
right.
Like
That's true.
anyone can mind block on stuff like that.
Yeah, I actually have experimented once. I think it was some like Dio 4v4 tournament where I it was like finals or something, and I was like, you know what? New tournament practice strategy. I'm not gonna play any map once. I'm only gonna look in the editor and feel out how the map goes, so that I know how
It's
the map
interesting.
goes, but I have zero expectation of how I'll actually do. And
Did that work?
I think it kind of worked actually, because I feel like whether or not I had actually gotten scores in solo wouldn't have changed how I actually did in the match.
Huh. I also think that is a strategy that can either help or completely destroy you, because
Right.
like some maps like are just too hard for you. Like not you specifically, but like
No, no,
for
yeah.
most players, like if you don't have the skill cap to sight read a map, then chances are you're not going to do it. Another thing I actually do is I tend to watch like every pool showcase for any tournament I'm in.
Oh,
because that will allow me to not have to go into the editor. If I just have to watch a video and I'll know all the maps, then it's like, well, okay, now I just need to make sure I'm warm on match day, and with luck, I'll be able to play everything.
I'm not gonna
Uh,
lie. I never watch pool showcases. I used to, but I strategically stopped watching them because, especially if the person doing the replay missed during the replay, I don't want to see that. I do not want to see where you missed.
That's an interesting point. I've never thought about that, but I don't think it really that doesn't really affect me too much because I'm just like, all right, well, it's
Right.
just an over aim. Like I also think a very effective way to practice, this is like kind of related, but I think a very effective way to practice for tournaments is to watch the showcase and then determine what maps are similar to that and then only play those maps
Oh,
so that you're just like you're kind of ready for the map that you're going to play, even though it's not like even though you're not mind blocked on it.
oh, so you're practicing the type of map rather than the map itself.
Yeah, if there's a Skyflame Nomad one, there's like 9 of those just
That's true.
already made. So if you can play one, you can play them all. Chances are, unless you put some really stupid patterns in somewhere,
Right. But
and that tends to work with AR8 too.
yeah, actually, that's true. Well, there's some people out there that make custom maps for,
Yeah, I mean, customs are a whole other thing. That's like
yeah.
kind of a new thing. I'm not super experienced with that. I'm also like, I'm a bit washed, so I'm not as good as I used to be.
Oh
I'm playing
no.
these custom tournament pools is so difficult for someone like I mean, like I'm 4K, like I'm not cut out for open rank anymore, but at least not like in stuff that's like not completely within my skill set.
Right. Yeah, I think actually okay, what are your thoughts on like talking to your team about like your scores? Like how should you go about that and like what value does it have to like tell people how you think you'll do even if you are like confident that you're never going to go in for a certain map? Like at what point should you still like practice the map and tell your team how you do?
I try and practice every map, to be honest. Even if I know I just can't play it, like I try to like at least know how everything goes so that um in the event like this is like a strategy that I'm pretty sure only I do. When I captain tournaments, I try to make sure everyone practices, and then I like weight everyone's scores like against mine, and then if someone who's like supposed to be in for a map is like I'm really feeling like shit, I'll just like put myself in because I do know the map. I might get a bad score, but I already go in knowing that my score will be bad, so it's like sort of it's allowing that player to keep their mental intact as opposed to like if we're up like 3-0, say,
Oh.
in like a quarterfinals match, and then someone picks DT2, and then one of our DT2 players is like, I just feel like shit right now. I don't know if I can play this. I'm just like, well, you don't have to. I'll sacrifice myself and my match cost
Oh
so
my god.
to keep your mental intact so you can play something else because I don't because like I think the worst thing that you can do in a tournament is like I don't know how this answers the question. I was just thinking about this by the
No, no, you're
way.
good.
I was the worst thing you can do is like force someone to play something that they don't want to, because then not only will they get upset if they don't like keep their like if they don't achieve the score that they want, then they're probably fucked for the whole match. Like, and they're
Right.
just gonna underperform everything.
Yeah, I think mental and like momentum, confidence is actually really, really big. Um, yeah, actually, I guess what are your thoughts on that? I know you sort of talked about it before, but like, how much of a role do you think momentum specifically has in matches?
I think it is a huge part. I think it's like almost more important than actual skill cap because lots of players like are definitely good enough to play the maps that they're like competing against, but you see lots of people drop 200k scores all the time just because like they sort of check out of the match. If you can if you can somehow make your opponent like believe that they're going to lose, then they're going to lose, I think.
Oh, okay, yeah, I get that. Oh,
It's I guess it's not really a momentum thing, but it's like
right.
a anti momentum for your opponent, I guess.
Oh, let's go.
I mean, yeah, I definitely used to be a lot worse about like mind game slash like tilting players. I try to not do it anymore because I feel like it's just kind of bad practice, but it definitely works, I think.
As far as like maintaining your own mental and like keeping your sort of confidence in check throughout a match, like even during a bad match, do you have any strategies that you tend to do, especially as a team captain? to like make sure everyone's morale is okay, confidence is good, and stay strong through the whole match?
Yeah, I think just like in general, reassurance and like positive, just a positive attitude really actually does wonders for most people. Unless they're like, um, just, I mean, some people are just like way too in their own heads about their own performances, which I mean, like I think everyone has occasionally. But in general, most of the time, if that doesn't really happen, then just keeping the rest of the team intact is a good strategy. Um,
Yeah, and I think even some people like might feel like they say something. How do I word this? It might feel a bit fake to say like, "Oh, it's not a big deal," blah blah blah. But I think it helps. I mean, it's better than saying nothing, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, no, I mean, because most of the time it probably isn't a big deal unless you
Right,
are down 6-1. Like, it's a match is always comebackable.
right.
Like, there's no like a team could anything could happen to the other team. Like, Osu is a game where if you lose like even 1 millisecond of concentration, like you can miss, and
That's
you
true.
could lose because of that, which is like a scary thing. But at the same time, it's like reassuring knowing that even if you play badly, there's a chance they'll do worse.
You could
Like,
also, um, what is it? You might also lag spike. That's a fun thing. Anything can happen in OSU.
yeah, no, it really is. I've seen players lose tournaments due to peripherals. Like
Oh
that's
no.
just an unlucky reality, and
And
it does happen.
I don't know if you were around when failed scores were a thing. Could also fail at the end of the map.
I was around a little bit. I remember OWC 2018,
Dude, that was
the
awesome.
debacle that was it Vaxay failing or
It
what
was
happened?
so Vaxi blue screened or something. And
Oh,
like
okay.
yeah. So for context, there was this one map in the OSU World Cup 2018 Grand Finals where Vaxei had like 300,000 score and then he blue screened. So he got disconnected. And I think his team ended up losing that map by like 150,000 or something like that. Like his score would have already made the difference even before he disconnected, but his score counted as zero because the the rules of the tournament were that if you fail at the end of the map, then your score is zero. And also the referees, the staff members were like, technically, if he had stopped playing completely, it would have been possible for his score to drop under the required amount to win the map.
Yeah, I do think that is a absolutely ridiculous rule, by the way. I mean,
So
like, yes, failing is a mechanic, but like it shouldn't. If you have a 900k score and then you fail and then lose the map by 50,000 points, you weren't going to lose that score just
right.
because you I don't know fell apart at the end because of nerves or whatever reason. Does not mean that you did not deserve that score.
Yeah, I think the best explanation I have for like why it makes sense for failed scores to still count is because if we just think about the whole point of a tournament match, I think is for the better performing player to win. And if you
Yes.
got 900k versus someone else who got 400k, then you perform better. And that is
Yeah,
all there is
exactly.
to it. You deserve the point because you perform better. That's the whole point of a tournament.
I
So,
mean, some people do view failing as like that is the ultimate sin. You don't submit your score in solo because you failed.
right.
So, like, I
OMG.
get that that's the argument, but yes, I don't agree with it.
Yeah, that's kind of trolling. But thankfully, it's not a thing anymore.
Yeah, well, generally, shout out OMF, my favorite.
Oh, dude. I quit Kildare tournaments after that.
I still remember that.
Dude,
God,
goodbye. Sorry, Kildare.
happens.
Speaking of failing and sort of getting psyched out sometimes, I think, okay, so it used to be the case, I think, that like it was actually pretty easy to get psyched out at the end of a map and get nervous about like whether or not you'll fail on the last pattern. And I guess like in a more broad sense, do you feel like there's any situations where something similar happens to you, where you sort of psych yourself out of certain patterns? And do you have like strategies for fixing that?
Um, oh, I gotta think about that. I mean, in general, like nerves have always been like a problem for me specifically, just because like I tend to shake a bit. So like a lot of the time, I'll just be thinking like, okay, I think I've done a pretty decent job lately at fixing this, which is just basically thinking, okay, well, everyone gets nervous. It's not like it's not like I'm any different from like anyone else. So I
Right.
tend to just not. I just tend to be like, okay, it's fine to be nervous. Uh, and then somehow, some way, I don't shake because of that. Before I was like, all right, my mentality was not uh I don't want to. It wasn't I want to win. It's I don't want to lose. Which
Oh,
if you have that, I feel if you don't have the skill cap to back it up, and I am notably not a skill cap player, if you don't have that, then you are kind of dooming yourself to just like have the worst mental because like you're way more fixated on like I need to not miss
right. Okay,
as opposed to I need to miss less than my opponent.
that's true actually. Yeah. And okay, we can talk about. Okay, so you mentioned like you're not a skill cut player. Can you actually talk about, I guess, what that means, and then also like the difference between like someone who is a skill cut player and more of a consistency player, and all thoughts related to that.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of different subsets of players. Like if you're talking about like the actual skills that are involved with an OSO, you have like four areas basically. You have your left hand, which is tapping mechanics, your right hand, which is aim and yeah, just pretty much aim. Your eyes, which are reading, and your brain, which is like a like, just dumb reading,
The
basically. There's
brain. I
like yeah,
think that's
and
also the
like
mental
most
side too, but that's
yes, that as
right.
well. And I definitely I've never taken the time to really try and push my mechanical aspect, which I think most people, if you want to become a skill cap player, that just is necessary because most high star rating maps involve a lot of mechanical skill as well as aim.
And
Uh,
mechanical, I think, in regards to like tapping hand and aim mostly.
yes, yes.
Okay,
Yeah, mechanical skills are the hands, and then like the eyes are reading. I'm definitely more into the reading aspect because just because I think it's fun to play maps that have like weirder rhythms.
right.
Generally mechanical based maps. The rhythms are a lot more simple, but they're much more difficult to execute like physically. Uh, I think reading and like mental maps involve a lot more patience, technically.
Right. And focus is a really big one also.
Yes, and that's why in a tournament setting, I tend to have okay focus, and I actually think I'm decently consistent until we get to a point where my skill cap is just a little too low. Then I begin to like start. Then that's like it happens where I overthink stuff, or I just am. Yeah, I just tend to miss a little bit more.
Oh, so basically like okay, so what do you think is actually the most important thing? Actually, would you rather have a lower skill cap but good consistency, or the other way around?
It really depends on the tournament. If you're in an open rank tournament, you're probably going to want skill cap, especially now we have like 8-star pools. Like it doesn't matter how consistent I am at 6.5 stars if I just can't even play the map.
Right.
Uh, if you're in like a rank restricted tournament, which is like generally what I tend to play nowadays, even though I'm very close to being BWS out at this point, um, then it doesn't. Your skill cap is not nearly as important, and it more matters on how consistent you are.
Yeah, I think the difficulty also. Okay, let's talk also about, because you know how difficulty in the earlier stages, like within one given tournament, the earlier stages of the tournament have a easier map pool than the later stages.
Yeah.
And okay, let's actually talk about like team building. So in the last interview that we did yesterday with Azer, we talked a bit about how you can balance a team. But I want to also bring up like, what do you think? Like, do you think it's important to have at least a couple consistency players to get you through the early stages, and then you sort of know from the get go that they're going to get benched by the time you make finals and grand finals, or is it okay to just have like all skill cap players and like manage your way through earlier stages and then do your best with like 8 strong skill cap players
Um,
in the end?
I, I think generally, well, it also, I mean, like once again, it does depend on the tournament, but usually, um, it's better to have skill cap players personally because I mean, like I myself am a consistency player. I'm way better at early stage pools, and I'm pretty confident in that. So if you have like one or two, like say it's like a 4v4, if you have like one or two players that are like for lower stage stuff and like reading and stuff, and then you have six skill cap players, chances are most tournaments like you're gonna be able to do, you're gonna do just fine in lower stages. I've never really had a problem with that. personally in team tournaments, because the skill cap is going to be a lot more important when it comes to late stage.
Right.
And especially now that pools are getting more difficult, like it's almost not even like if you have a low skill cap, you're just going to get destroyed in like early stages. Because a lot of the players nowadays are like, they're just way better than they used to be.
That's also
At this,
true.
yeah, like most skill cap players like are still quite consistent at low stages, because it's like it's not like they're losing um consistency by being able to play high star stuff. It's like they're still consistent in their skill set, which is usually just like aim and like, just basic mechanic stuff, because tournaments
Right.
don't tend to test stuff like super intricate like reading maps and stuff like that.
Well,
Uh,
they kind of do.
well, they do
Oh,
now, but
but
it's very limited slots.
right, especially in early stages is I think what you mean.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, so I generally think skill cap is a bit more important, especially now that players are getting so much better and pools are getting so much harder.
Yes, much agreed. Yeah, I would probably answer it the same way. Okay, so I want
Yeah.
to talk about pick and ban strategy for a while. And let's start actually with the order in which you should pick. So I think most tournaments nowadays do. So what they do is like both teams roll, right, 1 to 100, and then whoever
Yep.
wins gets to choose. They either choose the pick order or they choose the ban order, and they can choose whichever they want of only one of those. And then the other team, like let's say I decided to determine the pick order, then the other team picks the ban order. So yeah, okay. Which one? So let's say you won the roll. What would you pick?
I would always opt for second ban.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
because there's in terms of like generally the way that it goes is that like there's not really um you usually have a chance to win lots of maps. I don't think there's many maps that you are just going to definitively win. So if there is a map that you absolutely despise in the pool and that your entire team despises, it's better to just eliminate any possibility of that being picked, provided that the match goes for a long time, rather than risk having to play that and just like tanking mental because you now have to sit through like, I don't know, say a 4.5 minute nomad one that like no one wants to play.
Right.
Um, so if there is like any chance, wait, shit, I'm trying to think of like how I can phrase this. Um,
You got this.
yeah.
In the meantime, while you're thinking, you guys listening through YouTube or Spotify, you guys should join the OC University Discord server. This is where all the interviews happen. You guys can stay in touch with all these awesome events that we host here at OC University. But
um, I also think for in general, banning second is better because like there's always a chance that your enemy team will ban the map that you were thinking of,
right,
and that's just like an easy like free ban. Now you can think, oh well, this is nice. Now I can like this is also in the circumstance that it's like one ban per team as opposed to two.
that's true.
Um, if it's two bans per team, chances are like I don't think it'll really matter. Not nearly as much at least. Um, but if it's one ban, then you always want to go second. As for pick, I always tend to want to pick second as well, because you can, provided that it goes to tiebreaker, your map is always the last one picked,
Right.
which can like give you like a little bit of momentum maybe going into tiebreaker, provided that's like you all like keep each other's points.
I do want to ask actually. So you opt to determine the ban order rather than the pick order. Is there a reason for that?
Well, yeah, it's because I don't want to. I never want to ban something that they were going to ban first,
I
because
see.
that puts them in that is a big mental boost, honestly. If you can like if you accidentally ban what they were going to ban, then they're just gonna be like, wow, free,
Oh, I
awesome.
see.
Now this match is now easier.
Okay, let me know your thoughts on this. So, like, my thoughts on that is that, like, if both teams were planning to ban the same map, then, like, someone messed up. Like, that's not actually supposed to happen. In
Oh yeah, I do agree with that too. But I also feel like most people don't really try to scout that much anymore. So it actually tends to happen a lot more frequently. At least in tournaments that I play.
Okay, that's actually fair. Although, okay, personally, I just think that bans are a lot less influential for the match as a whole than the picks.
It also depends on the matchup.
Oh, really? Okay.
Like, if I'm playing against a team that has a bunch of stamina players, then like they just know that they're going to be like they're not going to play no mod 2. But so then why would I want to ban first? Because they already know that. So then there's a chance that they will
Ban no more to themselves.
I was going somewhere and then I forgot where I was going. I'm so sorry.
Oh no, it's all good. I think that that's
um
the real strat though. It's like you ban what you know the opponent's going to ban, and then they don't know what to ban at all. They end up banning a map that's actually good for them.
Yeah, I mean, it also it's there's a real thing that happens sometimes where it's like you'll pick, you like people will just be scared of your roster. Like there was a point in Corsace I think where like this iteration of Corsace where I was just on a team of like a bunch of stamina players, so I knew I didn't have to play Nomad 2, which was fine. But there was a point where there was a one round where we just really sucked at the stream map for whatever reason, and then the other team banned it into us just because of our reputation.
Right.
So we were just like, oh well, that's awesome. We like because we were genuinely going to ban it,
Oh,
um, and then they just banned it for us, and we were like, well, okay, now this is just a lot easier for us because
that's
you know
interesting.
just based on reputation. That's another reason why I tend to think that banning is more important, just because you never actually know what they're going to ban until they do it.
That
And that's like
yes,
that's not an uncommon thing actually that's happened. Like it's happened to me lots before.
right.
Um,
That's fair. Um,
yeah,
yeah, and I think for you specifically, as more known as like a reading player, I think like even if you're not comfortable on the reading map and you feel like banning it, it's at least probably not going to get picked against you.
yeah,
So,
that's also true. Um, but another thing I was going to say actually is that I feel when it comes to picks, if you've done a good job at rounding your team as a captain, then you probably will never have to worry about the other team is going to pick anyways. So bans are
oh,
just by default more important.
that's interesting actually.
Yeah, but that's also just coming from a perspective of like someone who generally makes most of their teams. So I don't
Right.
know if that's actually like that might not be the most common perspective on it, but that's definitely how I view it. Like even as an example, like I just had time skip trials is a tournament that I'm in now, which I made a interesting team of people who I've never played with.
Oh,
But and I meant solely pretty much off of like tournament like basically off of their like past tournament experiences and like word of mouth from other players.
oh, okay.
So I tried my best to form a pretty well-rounded roster, and so far it has not failed me so far. And pretty much every map has like, from all the pools that we've played, has a pretty core like 3-person roster of like scores that are just significantly higher than anyone else's.
Oh, dang.
So if you can have that, or like even like 2 players, then like chances are like unless someone is just feeling absolutely garbage that day, then even if the other team picks a map into you, like it's not really going to be a huge deal.
Right.
And also on the other end of that, if you have no scores on a map because like everyone just sucks at it, or like no good scores on a map, then if you don't ban it, then you already know that like you're probably just going to lose the point. So there's no point in like beating yourself up about it if you lose.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Um, yeah,
I think at the end of the day, like there's okay, so one thing that I try to tell myself also if I'm like losing a lot of their especially their picks, it's like it doesn't matter if you win the match like 7-0 or 7-6. Like,
yeah, exactly. It's like the progression of the match doesn't matter. What matters is the outcome.
right. So, and you could be behind, like you could be mispicking at the start as well and be down like 0-4. But as long as you know that your opponent's about to run out of like strong picks for them and that you have a chance on everything else in the pool, then don't like lose hope just because you're down 4 points. Like you could have, yeah, I think hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it
But
does.
yeah, I also want to talk about deciding whether or not a pick is good or not. I guess, and a ban also. So like when you're banning, Yeah, actually, first of all, okay, so as the team captain, how do you interpret your teammates' inputs into like what should be picked or banned? Like, do you feel like you should have the final say as the captain, or do you think everyone has an input in that? Like, it's really not your say; it's the
Oh,
team's say.
I definitely think it's a team say. Like there's if you overtake if you like unless you have some knowledge that like your team doesn't, like there is no reason that you should overrule a vote like that in my opinion. If you have three players who really think they're going to do well on a map, I would trust them
Right.
personally. Unless they have previous reputation of like grossly overestimating their own performances, which does happen. I mean,
Yes.
I think there have been times where I'm like, I'm sorry, we'll pick it next, but we're not playing this right now because I just don't want to risk like going down. It might be like a crucial point where I'm like, okay, this is actually what we just have to do.
Right.
But it really doesn't happen that often.
Okay, that's actually true. I actually forgot about that, but that's actually a thing that is really important to understand about your teammates as like knowing how they estimate their performance. Like, do they tend to overestimate or underestimate how they'll do? Because,
Yeah,
okay, so for example, Xarius. So in the team, okay, so team tournaments typically have like a Google spreadsheet where everyone puts their scores and how they feel, like how they think they'll do. And it's okay, so the most common template is you've put a number scale from like 1 to 7 based on how you feel you'll do in the match. So a 5 would be like, what is it, 700k or something?
something like that. Yeah,
6,
1 to 7, right?
right? I think 5 is like 660k or something, and then uh basically 9 is like 7 is full combo, and then
Yeah.
5 is more like half combo basically, minimum.
Yeah, in my opinion, it's like I mean, like I don't usually use the numbers, but it's more of like 5 is like you'll probably do fine. 6 is like you have a chance to FC. 7 is like you won't have a chance to miss generally.
Right. Yeah, that's
Um,
true.
but yeah,
Let me pull this up actually, just to make sure I get these numbers right. Okay, yeah. So basically, 7 is like you'll definitely FC. 6 is like you'll consistently get close to FC, if not you'll FC. And then 5 is like you'll probably miss, but you'll at least get like 700k. And I know Xarius would never rate himself above a 5. Like if he thinks he can FC. Okay, actually, the old tournament templates back when I would play with Xarius, like didn't have real scores. Like you could only put a feeling number. So um
really,
yeah. So
that's an interesting. That seems just not. Well, actually, I could see the merits of that actually, because like I feel like I try to not oversell myself generally.
right,
So if you can put down like if you have a number, then like people will just know like there's a range, as opposed to like
right,
I have 800k, I will get 800k. Then it's
right.
just more pressure.
Yeah. And I think probably during Apraxia's interview we'll talk about sort of the history of the team spreadsheet. That's very common these days because I think it was our team tournaments where we really like developed the spreadsheet design into what it is. But yeah, anyway, that's another conversation. Um, but yeah, basically, there's also players who like if they get a full combo once or something, or like if they rate themselves like as a 7 on the sheet, if they think they might FC it. But then
Yeah,
some players rate themselves as like a 4 or 5 if they think they'll FC it. So
yeah. I think the latter is always the better option because if there's like, if you think that you can do well, but like don't want to say like it's, I don't know. I guess there's like a nuance. You really can't be too far in one direction. Because like I
right.
know someone like Eddie, I love Eddie, but he always undersells himself really hard, and then we'll just go in and FC everything. But he never wants to play maps, so
Oh
it's like, all right, like eventually you need to overrule and be like you're playing the map, which
yeah,
like
yeah.
can backfire, but like sometimes doesn't. But I do think that someone who says they're gonna FC everything and like it's like 500k is like it's much worse for the team dynamic.
Right, that's true. Yeah, I think what is it? Putting like understanding your teammates and how they typically rate themselves is really important in that sense. And typically like who's good at that kind of map. So,
Yeah, I think if you can adequately make your team, like in theory, then chances are you will do well.
Yeah.
Like if you can develop a roster that's like you on paper have slots for every map, like if you know you've done your research, then chances are you will probably make top 3 in like any tournament you play.
Right.
As long as it's not like, it's not like 4 digits in an open rank tournament, like,
Yeah.
because in that case it's a little more difficult, but
Yeah.
like obviously like depending on what tournament you're playing.
Yeah, and I think also like listening to your teammate, like how your teammates feel in the moment, is a lot more important than like looking at their practice scores. Like,
Yeah.
I think speed, especially, is something. At least maybe in my experience, like if I wasn't super warm when I was practicing and like getting my practice scores, but then like on the day of the match, I'm like super energized and warmed up really well, then I might be able to FC a map that I was only getting 400k in practice. So
Yeah, I with my teams, I always tend to ask speed players first how they're feeling. Because if they're not feeling well, then it's like, all right, we need to adjust the whole strategy because we
right,
can't play mechanics today. We're gonna
that's true.
it's just a bit more of a weight on the like consistency or reading players,
Actually,
which is fine.
right,
But
that's true.
you just need to know going in.
Yeah. I also want to ask about how you decide bans also, especially in more important matches. Like, so sometimes it's very hard to get intel on the other team, especially in grand finals, because it's like, is this team even really bad at anything? Like, are they just going to FC like every map? So,
Right. That's in that situation, I would bend to your team's weaknesses.
okay.
Personally, but generally, I try to bend the other team's strengths.
Okay. So, how do you decide? So, I'm sort of asking for the sake of conversation, obviously, but like, how do you decide what is your weakness? Like, is it just the score, like maps you got the lowest score, or um, is it like relative to the type of map? And like, how do you decide that?
It's always dependent on the pool. But it's generally something that I mean I always have to ask the team at first, because if there's one map that overwhelmingly it's like no one wants to play, for example, Corsace, no one wanted to practice No Mod 6 at all. So I was just like, well, I guess we're not gonna play that, because if the other team practice it in any capacity, we will lose. So,
Oh,
and that's
that's
just like a
true.
free point gone. So we just can't play that. Um, and that does happen pretty, I don't want to say frequently, but it's definitely a common occurrence during tournaments where like there's one map where like I'll pick players who like don't want to, I'll pick players like for my team which like aren't really players that have like the grind genetics, especially for tournaments. Like that's not a common thing anyways. So generally we'll probably just stick with banning stuff that is like super memory based, or like
Oh,
just requires a lot of practice, because there are like maps that require that nowadays.
that's true. Yeah, and okay, so let me know your thoughts on this also. Like when forming a team, 'cause this is something that Easer mentioned, is like if you can't get the most well-rounded roster, then you can just make a roster in mind with the fact that you'll just ban a certain kind of map every match. Like
Yes.
instead of trying to fill a certain weakness, like let's say you don't have enough stream players, but like just ban the stream map every time and you'll be fine. Is that
Yeah,
valid?
we have done that. I've done that before. That literally happened. In fact, for I didn't captain this team. I didn't. I think I was like considered co-captain at some point, but for a tournament called Yuri Cup, which was another Kildori tournament, me and Yolks Pie thought it would be funny to make a hidden only team.
Oh,
So we just went in and we were we did win this tournament, so it did prove to be effective. But we basically decided to pick every reading and gimmick map, because it was like me, a Yolks Pie, like Miles, Five Joshi, and like a bunch of other of the like 4-digit hidden players from UFRJD,
wow.
basically. And we
Right.
were just like, all right, we're gonna go into this tournament. This is similar to what me. I've done this before, like multiple times actually. We went into the tournament. We're just like, all right, we're gonna pick every hidden and gimmick map, and we are going to ban every possible mechanics map, and then just pray that we can win on tiebreaker.
Oh my god.
And for every single match that wasn't like just like super early stage, we that is exactly what happened. Like we won all of our own picks, lost all of their picks, and then won tiebreakers.
Oh my god. Is that happen in
Um,
Grands?
yes, that did happen in grands both rounds because we went in losers.
What the heck?
It was the most excruciating grand finals I've ever played. It was like 4 hours, like just, and the pool was just so bad too.
Oh
It's just
no.
a bunch of, it was like equivalent to like Hippo Cup finals, basically. Is
Oh no.
like the no balancing, no like no nothing.
Oh, Kale Dory. And were
Yeah,
the
I mean
songs
like
even good?
yeah, most of the songs are pretty good.
Okay, then that's fine.
Yeah, it was acceptable from your perspective. um,
Yeah, my view on map pool quality is a bit off from many other players. I just care about good songs, and I'm like, yeah.
yeah, no, I feel you. But yeah, I mean like so if you go in, that is definitely a very valid strategy depending on the tournament. But you just need to know that you can execute it because if not, it will just blow up in your face.
Right. Um, and speaking of like, I guess running out of picks, like, because there was a question on the forum, actually, it's an anonymous question, but do you know what to do after running out of good picks for a match?
You really just need to ask your team what they're feeling comfortable on. Unfortunately, there's really no other strategy other than that. I don't think because it's like I'm just not going to pick my favorite songs because like then it's we'll just lose most likely if that's not exactly what the other team or what the team wants.
Right. And I mean, okay, to be honest, sometimes it is. Sometimes a match is so doomed, you're like, what's your favorite song in this pool? Let's just pick that one.
Yeah, I mean, like obviously matches. There are lots of matches that come down to that, but I think if you're asking in that question, it's from the perspective of like this is still winnable, but I
Right.
don't know what to do.
Right.
I mean, the only answer is like, all right, we'll look at the team scores, weigh how people are feeling. Like, if it's a speed map that has two FCs and two 400Ks, it's like, how are the 400Ks feeling? If they're gonna do worse than that, then okay, what are our other options?
Right.
We could pick a hidden two map. Everyone has 600K. If the FCs aren't as confident on the speed map, then we're just gonna pick that.
I think
That's an
y-
example.
usually okay, so I think there's actually two things you can do. So if you run out of maps that you would want to pick, is go back through the match history, like the MP link for that match, and notice like what kinds of maps were you winning consistently. Like if you like go back, let's say the score is like 2-5 or something, 2-5, and you're like, man, you couldn't win any of your picks, and now you feel like you're kind of out of picks. But go back to the MP and see what kinds of maps you were winning, and you might notice, for example, that like both of the maps that you ended up winning were aim consistency, and you're like, oh well, you should probably just pick other like maps that are related to that. Or if there's nothing else left like that, then try to see what maps have been being ignored by both teams. Like if the match is like 4-4 right now and it's like first to six and you're out of picks, try to see. Oh shit! I've been like fiddling with cards and I just like almost dropped a bunch of them. Sorry. Um, if you um like if there's a certain kind of map that's been being ignored by both teams, then especially if the match is very close to being done, chances are the other team doesn't want to pick that either. So either that or they're like hardcore baiting you into picking it by ignoring it themselves, in which case they probably deserve to win. But
Yeah, I agree. But I mean, yeah, no, that's also a very valid strategy. I didn't
yeah,
really mention that, but that is like, I also feel like that's like maybe not common sense, but like that's a
no,
pretty
no,
common thing what people
yeah,
do in tournaments. Like that does happen all the time.
right.
But this also goes back to what I was saying before. It's like if you have done a good job at rounding your roster, this should never come to this.
That's well, I mean,
But it does depend on pool and
right.
tournament. So I mean,
It
like, there's no like
it does depend on the map pool.
definitive way. Yeah, there's no definitive way to always have a core roster because like there's lots of nuance even in like specific tournament picks. Like there's no mod twos that are just so dissimilar that
Right,
are like just as an example, but like yeah, like no mod sixes alike. Uh,
right.
yeah.
I okay, so I also want to ask. So speaking of, I guess like quote unquote common sense strategies, there was a question on the forum from Boytek who asked, "What are some common strategies that are actually bad?" Is there anything that come to mind?
Um. Well, like I said, like practicing too much is just like is like one of the worst things, and I think lots of new tournament players do that where they'll just like play the pool like 20 times. And it takes a very specific person to be able to do that and like not troll.
Right.
Um,
Actually,
hmm.
so we can go back to this, bad common strategies question, but I want to ask: do you think it's better to, or do you think it's worse to over practice, or is it worse to under practice?
I generally think it's worth to over practice.
Okay.
Especially if you are like if your skill floor is high enough, um, then it's your sight reading should still be okay. As long as you have like the physical capability of playing the map.
Yeah, I
So
agree with that.
and And I was listening to Azer's interview, and I completely agree with what he said in that. Like, if you are sight reading, chances are, unless it is so far out of your skill range that you can't even play it, like you are focused on like every object,
Yeah,
which I do think is really important as just like a reading thing. Like, you should look at every note if you can, like,
yeah,
because it's way easier to miss if you're like getting a little lazy with your reading,
that's true.
um,
Although,
which does happen in tournaments.
right,
Yep.
I think just make sure you're not overwhelming yourself, or like if you're trying so hard to look at each individual note that you end up sort of falling behind because it's like so fast. Like, you admittedly don't look at like every single individual note.
Well, no,
Most
sometimes it
likely,
is impossible, but like
right,
do your best. Like if you, as
right,
long as you're making the conscious effort, like without like obviously like yeah, you might have to cut some corners if you're playing full screen jumps, but
right,
like there are it is just generally easier to focus if you're doing that, I feel.
right. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, just stay focused is
Yeah.
yeah. But yes, okay. Anyway, going back to common strategies that are actually bad.
Um I mean, if we want to just talk about gameplay in general, I think like adjusting your settings before a tournament match if you're not feeling like if you're feeling like something's off and you think it might help you, like it's probably just going to be a horrible idea
Oh no,
generally. I don't know if that's actually that common, but I do know lots of players who like change their area like every week. And I'm just like how can you expect to stay consistent if even your playstyle isn't consistent?
that's true.
Like you need to learn, you need to adapt to your playstyle, not like adapt your playstyle to you.
Right. I mean, to be fair, just as a disclaimer, if it actually works for you, then I mean, go for it. No, nobody's telling you exactly how to play the game, but yeah. Um,
Yeah. I think that can be said for like most of the things that we've talked about. Like I don't think that tournaments is like it's not an exact science.
right.
Like there are just some days where you're a god and there are just some days where you're not.
Yeah.
Like
I think any sort of competitive strategy, like theories, come down to like, it's really not science. It's very feeling based. I feel like.
yeah.
Oh
That's why I feel like
yeah.
having the numbers as opposed to the actual score is more important for a sheet.
Oh, the
Because
feeling
like
numbers.
yeah,
Right.
because like there's never a guarantee that you're going to get the exact score you put down. As long as you have a range, it's just like better for mental all around. Because if you get on the lowest end of the spectrum, hey, at least you still got your five.
True. That's true. Oh,
Yeah.
actually, okay. So common strategy that's actually bad. Picking first. Choosing
Oh
first
yes,
pick.
yes. Picking first is so troll. I don't understand how people still want to do
So
that.
many people. Dude, I play matches even these days. I lose the roll. I'm like, oh, it's doomed. And then the ref's like, oh, to my opponent, you get to pick first pick or second pick. And they're like, I'd like first pick, please. And I'm like, let's go.
Yeah, it's just like what's it? Yeah, I don't really understand the people who have that mentality, but I think they also are probably just like I think it might happen when you're really confident, where like you just think, all right, I'm gonna end this match quickly. I just want to pick what I'm the best at,
Oh.
and then if they are just like so confident they can win it, but then if they lose it, then it's like, well, fuck me. Like, what do I do now? Like, it's kind of a gamble to pick first.
So, okay, actually, to be fair, there are some situations where I actually want to pick first, and that's usually if I want to out nerve the other player. If the other player I think has worse like first match nerves or like tournament nerves, then I might want to actually pick first and pick a aim consistency map that I'm feeling confident on.
That is troll as hell. I mean, but it works. It's a little
Yeah,
BM, but it definitely
no,
works.
that is a viable strategy. I know
No, it is.
NAT against Fancy Lad. I think 2019, 2020. I did that. Ended up losing, but it definitely
It
was a
was worth a
viable strategy.
try.
It was a viable strategy. So I mean, yeah. Anyway,
The
that
fancy lad that's just unlucky,
that's
but
true.
yeah.
I think if you want to pick first, you really need a game plan as to why you're picking first. So I think the most common reason people say is that like they get momentum from winning the first map, or like it's a lot harder for them to build momentum and confidence if they lose the first map of the match.
True.
Because then they feel like they're backed into a corner and they have to respond properly or else they're gonna fall even further behind. I think that's probably the most common reasoning for picking first. But yeah, what are your thoughts on
Yeah.
that?
I mean, yeah, it definitely can work, but like you said, if you don't have a definitive game plan going into like going into the match and like this is why I'm picking first, then it is just so easy to blow up in your face.
Yeah, and it'll backfire. So picking first backfires when the match is very close, especially.
Yeah, that's also true. Yeah, because if there's a break point that early and then it goes to like 5-7, like you're just like gone.
Right. Like if it's one map before tiebreaker, you're gonna want second pick because that's you're gonna have the last pick before tiebreaker. So having that decision to make in your hands. Although to be fair, actually, there's an argument that like if you leave that responsibility of picking the last map before tiebreaker to the other team, that's actually a lot of pressure for some people, and it can be very hard to play well knowing that like if you lose that map, then it was on you for picking the wrong map.
Yes, but it's also a scenario where they've already think they've guaranteed themselves tiebreaker, so that their mental's probably already a little bit
Oh,
better than yours.
wait, okay, that's true. The oh, that's actually true. Okay, the team that like has the confirmed tiebreaker already. Okay, actually,
Yeah,
maybe
like
that's the
why would they
strat.
be nervous? They might be nervous on the tiebreaker if they lose, but like even then, like I don't think I would not be as nervous there if I was
That's
on
actually a good point. But you really can't predict. Okay, actually, which one is actually better? Having confirmed tiebreaker by winning all your own picks, and then not having the pressure of picking last before tiebreaker, or having the power to pick last before tiebreaker. But I think also,
um
oh no, you can finish.
yeah, I mean I'm just thinking about it. I don't have an
Okay,
answer immediately.
yeah, I think also needing to sort of pick blindly into the match is actually very tricky. When you pick first, you don't so like you might know the other players and their typical play styles, strengths and weaknesses, but you don't know how they're feeling on that specific day. And you can argue that, oh, you just pick a certain kind of warm up and that will tell you, but it really won't. Like it really
No, it
won't.
doesn't. Warm up's seen nothing. I've
Yeah.
just come to realize that warm up's seen nothing.
So and a lot of tournaments don't even have warm ups anymore. So
Yeah, I honestly think that's for the better. It just allows for less stalling.
right,
But yeah, I mean, like going back to what we were saying
right.
about the like picking before tiebreaker, I actually still think it's better to have the guaranteed tiebreaker with your own picks because then like I think once it gets to that point, the other team is like, oh shit, guaranteed tiebreaker for them. They start to think like this has happened to me a lot where they just start to think irrationally, and they'll stop picking into the other team's weaknesses, or like they'll start trying to pick into what they think is the other team's weakness, which
Oh,
is like a bit of a troll because like they already have a better mental, they're gonna play better now, and now there's just a lot of pressure on you.
right. I mean, also to
Uh,
be fair, if you're able to hold your mental together, I guess, then it's actually not a big deal because as long as you're sort of aware and like reassuring yourself that like it's the natural situation to end up in if you have second pick, and that it's like you sort of, I guess if you just understand or tell yourself that you have everything under control in like those situations when you have second pick before tiebreaker, then I I think it's okay. So basically, it's possible to not let it get to you, and
yeah, of
yeah,
course. Yeah, I mean, like obviously, in my opinion, is more of a mental game than a mechanics game.
yeah, especially in tournaments because you only get one try, right?
Yeah, solo play is a whole other discussion. Like,
Right,
I mean, like I think I share your opinion, which is just like even if you choke a map, it's like well, clearly you can get there. So
right.
I mean, it's not that big a deal that you choked. You can just try again.
Yeah, people spend years grinding for score sometimes. So
Yeah, shout out Wowie,
let's go, Wowie.
my guy. Um, yeah, I think people and GN as well. Like
Oh, true.
those people are like just built unreasonably different. I don't think anyone has the mental of those guys, especially GN.
Yeah, how did GN get built so different?
I
Someone tell
don't
me.
know.
Should ask him in the next interview.
These damn reading players. Yeah.
Man. Um. Okay, so I think before we move on to viewer questions, I want to talk about nerves and how you feel like you control your nerves, or like
um
strategies that you've tried, even some that didn't actually work out, like things that you used to do.
Yeah, I mean, well, me personally, I feel like I just have ADD. I turning off everything except for the play field is very important for me. Like if I have if I have any reason to look at something like my accuracy or like combo or like score lead or something like that, I
Oh,
will miss immediately and or I will get nervous. I want to know nothing about what the
right.
opponent is doing or even how I'm doing. I just want to hit notes.
Right. So turning off
Um
your interface, turning off the scoreboard.
yeah, sometimes I'll even turn off like UR bar and like stuff like
Oh,
key overlay, stuff like that. I don't think most people do that, but I just tend to have like I get distracted so easily.
right.
So I if I have nothing on the screen, I just play a lot better.
I see.
I also think I think meditating works quite well before a match.
Oh,
Genuinely about
yes.
just like breathing exercises. I think Bubbleman does this as well,
I think
where
he
he just
experimented with it.
yeah, where just breathing exercise and like trying to clear your mind as best you can before a match will allow you to perform better. Also, just
Right.
like shake is something that I feel is kind of genetic, but it's very controllable if you can just prepare properly for a match. Like as long as you know the maps like decently well, like as long as you know what you're about to do, then you should not be nervous. Or like you shouldn't shake, most likely. And just like, getting also like the standard stuff like self-care, like get
Right.
sleep, eat
Oh,
food,
yes.
drink water.
Sleep is actually the most valuable. Like that's how you actually prepare for matches. It's not
Oh
practicing the
yes.
pool.
Yeah, if you are on 4 hours of sleep, just don't show up. Like it's just like the chance that you lose is just exponentially higher in my experience.
Oh, dude.
Unless you have a team that can just carry your ass like all the way through the match, like you just are going to die.
And as someone who's from North America, I want to talk about scheduling,
Yeah, if you live in North America,
or I
you
guess just
just have the
Americas in general.
yeah, just America in general, you have the short end of the stick in terms of scheduling. You will have to wake up at probably you'll probably have to go to bed at like 10 p.m. If you want to wake up for an early match because if you're not well rested, like you're gonna get screwed. If you go to bed at like I don't know, like what's the least amount of sleep that you think you can manage to win a match with like comfortably? I think it's like 7 or 8 hours.
I think, yeah. Well, you can probably do with 5, but you're not gonna play very well.
Yeah, you're not gonna feel good doing it. Like you
Right.
can manage it, but like if to be happy while doing it, I would get like 7 or 8 hours.
I think the most important thing that's emphasized, like before grand finals in like even like the World Cup, for example, it's like at everyone, go to sleep. Please go to
Yeah,
sleep.
seriously, take some melatonin or like anything. Just please go to bed.
Yeah.
Like it's actually yeah, sleep is definitely the most important thing because if you wake up like not only will you play bad, but you're just gonna be miserable during the match too because you're gonna have to like force yourself to focus and inevitably your brain will just like stop working like mid map.
Right. And so for context, by the way, so let's assume usually that like okay, so OSU players all over the world, right? So in a tournament match, you might have some people from America, some from Europe, some from Asia, East Asia, and sometimes even people from Australia too. And for example, let's say it is noon in Europe, then it's like around 7 a.m. in America, and it's around 7 p.m. in Asia, and it's probably around 10, 11 p.m. in Australia. So like early afternoon for Europe is usually when international matches are scheduled or like
Yes.
matches that want international viewership. So
Yeah. If you will live in Europe, you are quite lucky in terms of tournaments.
right. So those from America tend to need to wake up very early for those sorts of matches. And
Yeah.
especially there's time zones where like okay, so very West Coast America, like California, like
Yeah, I was gonna say like we're whining. You're in like Florida. I'm in like Connecticut, Massachusetts area. Like we have it easy in terms of America.
that's
Like if we're
true.
talking about like Washington or like California, oh my God,
Dude,
14
goodbye.
UTC is just 7 a.m.
People
That
quit
is like
tournaments for that reason.
yeah, I get it. Like I would never want to wake up at 7. I stopped waking up at 7 a.m. the moment I graduated high school. Like that's just not. I would not go back to that for anything.
So, yeah, I know Ryuke also is in that time zone. That's really bad for international matches. And he's like, why are these matches so early?
Yeah.
It sucks.
Yeah, I
But
just feel them. United States Cup is like the one saving grace for like that general area because most of the matches are like like 18, 19 UTC,
Right.
which even then, that's still like 12 p.m. Some people wake up like hella late on the weekends.
Yeah. But yeah, do you have any tips other than sleeping early for matches? I think that's pretty much it, actually, as far as
I
scheduling
think,
goes.
yeah, in terms of scheduling, is definitely it. I don't really think so, other than like make sure to have your like skins and offset planned out before the match if possible.
Oh,
Um,
true.
because like there are definitely like sometimes there are old maps that just need offset, and stuff slots like DT4. Like
That's true.
you
Oh,
could definitely completely troll if you don't
yeah.
have the right offset. If it's like an easier map, like and it's just gonna be like based on FC AC. If it's based on AC, like you're just gonna lose if you don't have that like set in stone before the match. This is like I know Fiery is like super like
Not
he needs
notorious,
to
but yeah, yeah.
no, but I mean like he's just known for
Right.
like he needs his maps to be like perfectly timed, which
Yeah.
I think is totally valid.
Yeah. I think, yeah, even okay, so the only downside to like not playing the maps and just sighting in the match is like if your offset is wrong, then you're kind of doomed because you can't change it while you're playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only other thing I can really say is just like it just really you need to know yourself, basically. Like and just not troll your own performance because you need to not like if you know that you can't perform on 6 hours of sleep, then don't get 6 hours of sleep.
Right. And
You need to like be
yeah.
responsible.
Also, like I guess having eaten before the match, like if you know that if you actually don't eat, then you play better, or if you don't eat, then you play worse, or anything in between, then yeah, know yourself and know what works best for you and do that.
Yeah, exactly. You need to set yourself up for success, basically, is the only thing. Because
Right.
like once you do that, like you're not only will your mental be better, but you'll probably play better too.
Right. Um, yes, I do want to give time for some viewer questions. So I'll sort of
Sure.
ask for those now and we can talk about those for a little bit. And then while those questions are coming in, can talk about some key takeaways that you would like to shout out. But before that, I'll just say like, okay, those of you listening live right now in the Discord server, there's a text thread in the general channel called live chat. And that's where we'll be taking a couple questions to wrap up this interview. But yes. So what we do is if you see someone else's question that you would also want asked, if you could react to it with a thumbs up emoji, that could be very, very helpful. We can keep track of the questions that are coming in. But yes, while questions are coming in, Will, if you have any key takeaways, I guess, or things that you want to shout out or emphasize as we wrap up this interview,
Like what do you mean like emphasize?
I guess just anything that you think is like very important. Like if you had to tell like one or two things to anyone for a tournament strategy.
Oh, I mean, like we pretty much just said it, but like you just need to be responsible when it comes to matches. Like,
Right.
if you need to, like, I'm not saying you need to grind through every map, but like you should have a general idea of who you're playing against, have a general idea of like how your pick and ban strategy is going to go. Because deciding it during the match is just very stressful. It's very annoying. No one wants to do it, so it's just easier to have it all sorted before the match.
Right. That's
Um,
true.
and yeah, just ultimately be responsible and like don't troll.
Yeah. No
Fill out the
trolling.
sheet. Yeah,
A little bit of trolling sometimes.
yeah. I mean, if you're in a round of 32 situation, you're the top seeded team against the 32nd seeded team. Chances are you probably don't need to prepare as much. Like you can have fun. It's not illegal, but like if
Right.
you're in a contention like a match that's like in contention, like you can lose, then it's probably best to try.
Yeah. Well,
I guess.
actually, I think there's like one. There's some situations that I think it's actually better to troll. That is like if you're playing against me, then I think it's actually a good idea to troll.
Yeah, that's true as well. 'Cause, I mean, you troll as well.
Oh
Like
shit.
I have watched multiple streams where you go in VC with your opponents.
Oh, that's true. Actually, I'm just a troller these days. This
Yeah.
Kablaze. Oh my god, wait, that's right. So I 1v1 Kablaze once and I was like, "Hey Kablaze, what do you want me to pick?" And then I actually just pick whatever I'm
Oh
told.
my god.
Yeah, Osus are fun, guys. That's the real takeaway.
I do want to say really fast. I did look at the sheet. One of them says to Will Stetson, "What does it feel like to be carried on every tournament you have played until now?" To that, I say, "I can't hear you. I have 5 badges, and that's what's important."
Let's go.
I find lots more importance in in building a proper team rather than my own performance.
That's true. That's value.
If you can captain a team successfully, then you don't have to play maps. Poggers.
Let's go.
um but yeah. But yeah, I let me see. Is there any specific to keep track of when playing with a team tournament knowing
Okay,
your
I actually,
strategies?
it's, okay, to, oh, I guess when you're reading questions, try to, like, actually, I'll probably just read them because for
Okay.
those that are listening through YouTube or Spotify, they can't actually see what you're reading.
Oh,
So,
okay.
right. Actually, okay, let's actually start with Door's question, which is how do I play a match at 11 p.m.?
Um, that
This is
should
like
be
the
easy.
opposite end of the spectrum.
um, I mean, I've never had an issue with that. I feel like just don't. Well, okay. Actually, I guess there are a couple things I could say. Well, I mean, try not to play too much in the daytime, I guess, because I feel like you can burning out is a very real problem if
Oh,
you like
that's true.
overdo it right before a match. Like there have been times where I'll play like Osu for like 4 hours and then I have a match and I'm just like, I just don't want to play Osu anymore. Like I just want to go to bed or like I don't know, do anything else. It's important. It's like sort of in the same vein as over practicing, but like a little bit different. Just like don't burn yourself out before a match that's that late. And I also
Yeah.
think like maybe caffeine could help, but it really depends on the person.
Right. I think okay, actually what Irian said about I guess this question is very related also. If they asked if I have a match around 3 a.m., should I just stay awake or take a nap before the match? Um
Hmm.
well, personally, and it depends on sleep schedules, right? Some people like need a certain sleep schedule. They wake up early for work or something like that or school. And if I have a really late match, then usually I'll just take a nap around like 5 or 6 p.m. and then maybe wake up at like 9, 10 p.m. Is that even a nap anymore? It's like a mini sleep.
Yeah, that's just mini sleep. But I mean, like, I do generally agree with that. I think sleeping is a bit more helpful. But I also think that just like actually going to bed early is just like an easy strategy. You wake up at like 2 o'clock, warm up, play your match, maybe wear your blue light glasses during the match, like just so like you're not awake for like 2 hours after your match. Try and get some sleep. Or if the match goes longer, just drink some coffee. And
Right.
like I don't really think there's like it's kind of a no-win situation in that regard because like you're probably just not gonna have a great time anyways. But the actual strategy is reschedule your match.
True.
You just don't want to play at that time. No one wants to play that late.
The strat is to forfeit.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, but yeah, I generally think like it's kind of a no-win situation. I personally like I'm the type of person that can stay awake for a long time. So I don't really like
Oh.
I never really take naps because I always screw myself. And like if I take a nap at 4, I'll wake up at 12. And it's just like, well, fuck
Oh
me.
god.
Now I'm waking up at midnight. Like,
Oh
what do I
no.
do?
It's doomed. Um
But yeah.
yeah, this question from Vanish is there any specific things to keep track of when playing with a team in a tournament? For example, knowing strengths and weaknesses of your teammates. Um So
Um,
obviously knowing your teammates is very, very important. I think that we kind of talked about that throughout the interview.
yeah, I think when putting your team together, you should be definitely taking into account like synergy and skill sets.
Right.
Also like how much they're playing. Like I would not pick someone who hasn't played the game in 3 weeks because it's like, okay, maybe they're gonna have to derust, like they're gonna have to like maybe they have scheduling issues, like it could be
Right.
very, very annoying. They might not show up. Like there's quite a bit to consider in that regard. But other than that, like just try and pick people who you think are gonna have fun playing. Because if you're just picking a team to win, like who knows? Like yeah, they might all be good players, but it doesn't matter if they're like a good solo. If you're a good player like by yourself, if you bring down the mental of the team, then it's like well, it doesn't matter if you're good because you're all gonna hate being there. So
That is
like,
true.
yeah, you just I personally do not like doing that.
Yeah, you gotta prioritize the good vibes people.
Yeah, I agree. Tournaments are meant to be fun, guys. By the way,
Oh, newsflash.
believe it or not,
Games
yeah,
are
they're
for
not all
fun.
about winning. Yeah.
That's crazy. Um, okay, a question from Araxe who asked, is picking maps that your team's weaker at to get a top scoring player out of the lobby a valid strategy? So basically, is it
Uh,
viable to just pick one man carry map?
um, well, as in is it like the opposite of one man carry map? Um, and yes, I think so. I actually think it's a very good strategy. But it also depends on the disparity between that top player and the rest of the team. Like
Right.
it also depends on the tournament. Like I remember Hippo Cup this year, Taquito was
Oh
just
my god.
out of this world in grand finals. Like they just kept him in for every map and he carried them to every point almost. So if 15 or whatever the hell their team name was, like picked to try and get him out of the lobby, that would have been super advantageous, especially because it's score v1. So
Right.
if you have a team, if you have someone who could just 3,000 combo every map, then yeah, you should not have them in the lobby. If you yourself can only get 800 combo as a team, you definitely don't want to have that player in. For
Right.
V2, it's a little bit different, but it still is valid. I remember. Do you remember Hoshinomori?
Yes.
Was he was later discovered to be cheating, but at the time, it was widely considered he was just like a tournament god and was FCing just every map he would play. He was mainly a hidden player though, so when we were in Rikma, all we could do is just try and keep him out of the lobby by picking stuff like Hard Rock and Speed,
Right.
which did decently well. We got the points that we needed. We did wind up losing initially, but then he got banned and we replayed the tournament. Um,
Oh.
but and we did win, luckily. But it did prove effective. But we eventually just ran out of maps that we could pick that kept them out. So we wound up losing.
Oh
But
no,
yeah,
darn
in
it.
general, I think it's valid. But it's always like I said, make sure to consider the disparity between the god player and like the rest of the team.
Right. It all depends on how confident that player is in in the moment. So
Yeah.
yes. All right. Question from Tablespoon is regarding disabling UI. Would you go as far as to disabling misses and 100s to reduce visual stimuli?
That is something that I have done, and it did work temporarily, but it's a bit of a mind game. Once you realize what you've done, then I feel like it stops becoming as effective.
Oh,
Because
placebo.
eventually, it also depends on the map. Because like I tend to be like, uh, I have really good accuracy, so it's very like the way that I determine when I should be hitting early and late is like I don't completely ignore the song, but I mainly prioritize hit sounds, and I listen to like the timing of slider ends since that's like a perfect like that's when you should be tapping
Right.
essentially. So after a certain point, if the map is like if the song is quantized, like you don't even need music. You can just if you can just rely on your own internal sense of rhythm to like hit 300s. If you think you can SS a map without like looking at your UR bar and 100s, then yes, it's actually quite effective. But I don't know if it's something that you should do all the time. Like if you have any sort of BPM change, like you could just unintentionally tank your score and not even know it.
Right. And I guess having your UR bar at the bottom does help as well.
Yes, it does. But I mean, like if they're talking about reducing visual stimuli, I
Oh,
would assume that isn't there anyways.
that's true.
Um,
Yeah.
but that might just be my own experience, and
Yeah.
where I take that away.
I
I think most players don't do that.
Yeah, I've also tried it before and it does help. It depends on the kind of map. If it's the kind of map where it really only matters that you hold your combo, or also like a heavy tech map where it's like weird sliders and you don't care if you drop slider ends, then I think not having the 100s show up is actually helpful.
Yeah, that's also true. I definitely have multiple like solo scores at least where I've done that, and it's just hilarious because like I'll FC with like 30 combo like gone for my score, but it's an FC because I just didn't follow sliders at all.
Let's go.
But it works because you FC. So
Right. Okay, so someone asked, okay, so Water asked, specialized team or team that's fine at everything?
I did talk about it a little before.
Right.
I have had good experiences with specialized teams, but I think generally team that's fine at everything is probably better because if you're going up against a team that's more specialized, like you can ban that type of stuff generally, and like most stuff that's like really specialized players who are all rounders can grind that at least a little bit to try and get better scores.
That's
Um,
true.
but yeah, I enjoy playing on special life seems more because it's fun.
Oh, true. True, true, true.
Yeah.
Yes, let's see. So, question from Erin who asked, how long should I warm up before a match? And is it bad to warm up too much?
Yeah, like I said, it is bad to warm up too much, but it's like you really, I mean, every player has different amounts of like actual playing stamina. Like some people can play for like 6 hours and like feel fine, and then some players can play for like 2 hours and like want to die. So it's like you really just need to know yourself. That's something you should experiment with. Personally, I try to warm up for like just until my left hand can move. Basically, is when I feel I'm warm enough. Because
Oh,
I
yeah.
just I'm like I said, I'm mainly the eyes player. So like as long as I'm awake, like I can usually play the game. Uh,
Right.
but if it's something like if you're like a speed stamina player, you should probably warm up until like you can, do what you normally can. Uh, and then yeah, just don't overdo it like that much.
All right. A question from Kablaze. How are you so cool, Will Stetson?
Am I cool? I feel like I get clowned
I think
because
you're
I get carried in every tournament.
I think you're a baller. That
um,
question got a thumbs up. Let's
Oh,
go.
let's go. Thanks, Complete. Who thumbed that one up?
It was LPUE.
LPU. Thank you. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think I'm pretty normal. I think I'm pretty normal, except I get clowned in tournaments because I get carried. But I mean, I have badges, so who's the real winner?
Let's go. All right, next
Yeah.
question from TG4X is it a bad idea to keep joking in VC when in a tournament? Like keep saying stupid jokes between matches and like getting teammates off of their serious mood that they're in?
Um, I think it's actually the opposite. I think it's good because it just keeps people happy, keeps team
Right.
morale up generally. Unless someone is like just really depressive and like annoyed and like takes the game like turbo serious, or it's like a grand final match that just needs absolute focus. Like, and even in that latter scenario, like I think that joking around is totally fine as long as
Right.
you can like don't stray too far from the task at hand.
Right.
Anything that improves team morale is good.
Yeah, I think as long as you create an enjoyable environment, that usually makes people perform better as well, because you're just hanging out, you're just gaming and having a good time.
Did you see the meme of the tournament players meme where
Oh
it was
no.
like just oh my gosh, hang on. I can try and find it after. But
Okay.
yeah.
Let's go. Among Us jokes all match long. That's a good idea, actually.
Oh, I agree. I'll
Oh
try that next time.
yeah, I'm gonna do that in my next match. Definitely not lose all my friends, but
Yeah. I think yeah, just keep team morale good and then
yes,
you will flourish as a tournament player.
let's go. Uh, yes, but with that, I think that probably will wrap things up. Do you know if you're gonna be here on Friday? There's a Q&A panel that is at
Probably
4 p.m. Eastern.
4 p.m. I think I should be here.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah.
But yes, thanks for joining me today, and those of you listening live who asked questions or just stuck around. Quick shout out to those of you listening on YouTube or Spotify. If you want to support our content, best thing you can do is just to share it with anyone you think might enjoy it. And if you want to get directly involved in these interviews and other things we do here at OC University, best thing to do is to join our Discord server. That is where everything happens. And yeah, thanks again, Will, for joining. It's a lot of fun. I think
Hell yeah. Thank you
yes,
for inviting me.
yes, good insights. And as to anyone who wants to keep in touch with you or stay connected, this is your time to shout out your socials.
Yeah, you guys should all go follow me on YouTube. Will Stetson. I do funny covers of funny Vocaloid songs. Uh it's I try to do a good job. Also follow me on Twitter at stillwetson. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Ooh, let's go. Yes, that is going to do it for this interview, though. Thanks to everyone for listening, and we will see you guys next time.
Bye-bye.